I've seen people do some really dumb stuff hiking. And to be fair, some of those people were new, some of them were beginner hikers, and when you're learning something and just getting started, you tend to make some mistakes. So for you, the beginner hiker, the new hiker, we're here to hopefully save you some trouble today. I'm gonna go through a list of 8 common mistakes that new hikers make so that you can hopefully see them and avoid them. So with that, let's jump into the very first one. So the first mistake is to go hiking by yourself. Especially if you're new to hiking, you should always go with a buddy, and preferably, if you're a beginner, go with somebody who's experienced because they can teach you some things and you can learn from them along the way. I think too often people who are just kind of dipping their toes in the water of hiking, that they want to kind of go all like survivalist and they want to be like, yeah, I want to go out on my own and do this on my own. But you probably want to pump the brakes a little bit and make sure you at least do your first few hikes with a buddy. And I personally have been on hundreds of miles probably of hikes, but I pretty much always go with somebody. It's just safer to do it that way, and it's more fun too. The second thing is new hikers will sometimes buy brand new shoes or brand new hiking boots for their first hiking trip, and that is actually a really bad idea because it won't give you enough time to break in those shoes, and that can give you blisters, which can ruin your entire hiking trip. And so what can be better is to buy those boots or shoes in advance and make sure that you're like wearing them around the house or wearing them at the office of work so that you have some time to break them in before you go on your trip. Or if you're going on a short enough hike, you might even be better off just using some tennis shoes that you've already been wearing for a while, or some like maybe basketball shoes that you've been wearing for a while that are like sturdy enough to protect your feet and to support your ankles, but that are, you know, not full-on hiking boots. That can still be better depending on the terrain because it's less likely to give you blisters if your feet are already used to them. Mistake number 3 is a classic, and this is to overestimate your ability or fitness level, okay? And so this is a mistake that I think we just generally as people, as human beings, often make, is we think that we can do more than we actually are capable of doing. We tend to be a little bit optimistic when we think about our fitness level. And so for your first few hikes as a beginner, I would strongly encourage you to be conservative and to make sure that you're doing really short hikes so that you can gauge your level of ability, especially if there's elevation. If you're like hiking up and down hills or mountains, then you want to be conservative and you want to make sure that you are going to be able to kind of ease your way into it and that you don't go too big too soon. Item number 4 is neglecting navigation. So this is a classic one. I have gotten lost in the woods. That was years ago when I was pretty young, but I'm confident enough in myself to own that now. And you don't want to get lost in the woods, especially like in a natural area, and especially if you're going by yourself. You just don't want to get lost. You don't want to get lost when you're going hiking. I think this goes without saying. But what is important is to point out a couple ways that people can fall into this trap without thinking about it. So I think sometimes people will go hiking at like a national park or a state park perhaps at a trailhead that seems to be well marked. And you might make the assumption, well, there's going to be signs, there's going to be information along the way where I'm going to be able to find the route that I need to take. But sometimes when you go down those trails, it's going to be less well marked the further you go, and you might end up getting lost because you didn't start with the information and you didn't start with the plan that you needed in order to successfully navigate. So take responsibility for your navigation. Don't depend on the markings on the trail. Make sure that you have a map and a compass or perhaps a GPS, the tools that you need in order to properly navigate and avoid getting lost out on the trail. That's really important. Number 5 is another classic beginner mistake, and this applies both to hiking but also to camping and outdoor activities in general, and that is dressing badly. This is a huge mistake that people make. Either they get too cold or they don't have like wind or rain resistant clothes, or they wear cotton and it gets heavy and cold and bogs you down. And so dressing badly is a huge problem that lots of beginners to hiking make. And I actually did a whole video where I talk about layering 101, and that's a big thing for hiking and outdoor activities, is to learn how to layer your clothes in such a way that you can have a set outfit that basically can be adjusted for different weather and different like times of your hike. So if you want to check that out, I'm going to leave a little card up to it on this video, and I'll also try to put a link in the description so you can check that out to learn more about layering so that you can avoid dressing badly for your hiking trip. Now, item number 6 is not drinking or eating enough. I've seen this many times. People will tend to underestimate how much they need to be drinking and eating on the trail because they kind of feel okay. But you need to be a little bit proactive when it comes to refueling when you're hiking. Make sure that you're drinking water before you're thirsty. You may have heard the saying, if you're thirsty, it's already too late. You're already, you know, needing to get more water into your system. And so, long story short, make sure that you're taking food and enough water, and that you're proactively eating and drinking even before you're thirsty or hungry, to make sure that you're not running low on fuel before you take the time to do that. Item number 7 is what I'm going to call the living off the land mistake. And so you might have done this, you might have seen people do this, but for whatever reason, when people are out hiking or doing some sort of outdoor activity like this, they get emboldened by their new attachment to nature, and they might do something foolish as a result, such as drinking unfiltered water out of a river or stream, or perhaps eating a berry that they don't recognize or cannot identify. And so don't do this. This can cause a multitude of problems, including making you very sick, or it could potentially lead to poisoning and a variety of other things. And so don't drink unfiltered water out of rivers and streams, and also don't eat food that you don't recognize and can't identify as something that is edible and not poisonous. And so, yeah. And mistake number 8 is failing to prepare for an emergency. So this is especially important for wilderness or like natural area hiking. And this is one of those things that people will forget to do, or will just not know enough to do. But just to give you a couple examples of what I mean, when I go hiking, especially in a natural area, will usually take a first aid kit to treat injuries. And I'll also take a small container of fire starters so that I can start a survival fire if I need to. And so that's not a comprehensive list. There's other things that you can do to prepare for an emergency, some of which are planning. But it is really important, especially if you're in a wilderness area or you're at a natural site such as like the forest or the mountains or the desert, to plan for an emergency, to make sure that you are gonna know how to react and know what to do if you do find yourself in danger or in a compromising situation, if you will. So those are our 8 mistakes. And I hope you found these helpful. We're gonna be doing more tips and instructional videos like this about hiking. So if you liked this and found it useful, hit the like button for us, and also subscribe to our channel. Bye now.